All right, I'm going to add a very small change to this code so that when we set this error label here, it fades in, displays for a couple seconds and fades out. And that makes it sort of easy to manage the state. Okay, it does propagate through the code, as you'll see. That's quite interesting implications. So C# has got this rather nice asynchronous mechanism known as await and async. So this is how it will work. What we can do, we can say that error label has a fade to, okay, and we can set the opacity. So we're gonna fade to 1, which is fully opaque, visible, and we're going to take 500 milliseconds. It's thousandths of a second, so that's half a second. Then we're going to wait. So I'm going to go task dot delay. We're going to have 2000 milliseconds, which is 2 seconds, and then we're going to fade it out again. Now you might think that's a bit magic. Now notice it says awaitable. So for this to work properly, okay, and for these to happen in the right sequence, then I need to write await on the front of each. Now what does that mean? Well, essentially this, don't worry about the error yet, this method will run and because it's probably based on either another thread of code, which is a parallel thread of execution, or some hardware device such as the GPU, it doesn't really matter. In fact, you don't even need to know. The fact is that this method, right, will stop executing at this point, and then the rest of the user interface code will be allowed to carry on. When that fade has completed, it'll be like someone clicking a mouse, in other words, generating an event. And assuming there's nothing else to do, then it will resume from this point. So events don't have to only enter a function, they can enter part way in, in other words, where you left off. So it's a way of kind of yielding. It's not firing off a background thread as such. If you've done multi-threaded programming, it's a bit more elegant, I think you could say. Because after all, what do we often use background threads for? Waiting for slower devices. Okay, in this case, we're waiting for some process to fade a label. So we only really need to know when it's done. Yeah. So to create a thread just to do that is much harder than this. So if we tack these all on the end of each other, await, that means is that it'll start this off and wait till it gets an event, like a mouse click or a touch or a swipe, whatever it is, to say that's done. Then it will resume and do a delay. That'll set off a timer. Again, 2 seconds later, there'll be an event that comes into the queue. Because there's a thing called an event queue that sits in the background that processes all the touch events and any timers that fire, etc. And that will then allow this to resume, and then we'll fade back out again. So basically it's a way to interrupt the execution of flow and wait for an event to occur. Okay, all done on the main thread. So if you know a little bit about these things, any updates to the user interface have to be done on what's called the main thread, which you are always on, by the way. You've never just not realized it. Now it's complaining because this method now is asynchronous. Because it's using asynchronous APIs, it itself becomes asynchronous. Yeah. So we have to make it async. Okay, it's even changed the name. Look, I think that's a convention, but the key thing is, look, it's changed the method to be private async, and now instead of void, it's task. All right, and this is now calling this. So now all of this is asynchronous, right? Because you're calling an asynchronous method, the caller is, oh, we got to do that. Did that actually do anything? There we go. Private async task, sync view model async. And where's that call from? The event handlers. So that's now complaining. Now this one, just go insert an await. Yeah. And that. Okay. Event handlers have slightly different rules. Right, so we've got to use await because this is asynchronous. And now the containing function. I'm using stay void because an event handler expects it to be a void. Notice it's changed the names as well. Okay, did it change it in the handlers? This should be interesting. So out of interest, because I'm not actually sure now, because it's not something you do very often. Let's run it. Ah, no, didn't like it. Good. Well, that makes me feel better, actually. So, handle height. I've just put the word async on the end. Okay, so handle weight, async. And there's the other one. Handle height, async. Let's check we've got those right. So it's height, weight, weight. Good. Save all. Run that. So event handlers can be asynchronous too. All right. But interestingly, they don't return task. And I'm going to put my hand up and say, someone please tell me why. Because I don't know. Right. When I find out, I shall let you know. But I'm not going to pretend to know it all. Okay, so 1.8, that's fine. As soon as I put the 2 in, I'm expecting that to fade. Good. 20, 200, 2000, fades in, fades out. Isn't that lovely? That's out of range. And it's gone. And you get the little star there, look, so you know which one's wrong. So there you are. That's adding some animation. That wasn't so hard. It's just knowing that as soon as you've got an await in there, it tends to propagate all the way back. Okay. We'll meet this again, right? Await and async turn up in other places.